The Federalist Papers by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay help provide insight into what the nation's founders were thinking when they incorporated the three branches of government into our Constitution. Let's find the first follow-on sentence, the first piece in the framework, and if you don't get the first piece correct, then nothing else that follows will be correct. So let's focus on this first follow-on. All constitutions have three elements. No, that seems to be a quotation or a specific example, not a good follow-on to the idea of the Federalist Papers and our founders' thoughts in arriving at three branches of government. Aristotle wrote politics in the 4th century BC. Well, Aristotle was not introduced in the first sentence, so that would not be a very good follow-on sentence, so we can eliminate U. It is clear from the Federalist Papers that the founders were students of the Enlightenment, and in particular the ideas of Baron de Montesquieu. Well, that looks like it fits nicely, because we're talking about the Federalist Papers providing insight into the founders' thoughts, and this outlines that the Federalist Papers clearly outlined or indicated the founders were students of enlightenment. So that fits very nicely. Although Aristotle himself saw democracy as flawed, again, Aristotle was not yet introduced in the first sentence, so that would not be a good follow-on. And lastly, let's just check Q. But Montesquieu, but would be a transition. Already Montesquieu would have been introduced, but he was not introduced in the first sentence. So like Aristotle, we can eliminate Q because Montesquieu has not been introduced yet. However, it does look like S is our best follow-on sentence, and really the only option here. Q would be a good follow-on to S, because in S, Baron de Montesquieu is introduced. Q says, but Montesquieu, who was introduced in S, was not the only important political science who informed the founders. That's a nice fit. So this implies that there's probably another important political science, and let's look at R, U, and T now to see what the best follow-on is that. Are all constitutions? Well, that's not really telling us what other political scientists there were, so that does not fit, and that looks like a specific example being in quotations. Aristotle, who wrote politics in the 4th century BC, was a champion of freedom in the history of ideas, and his work helped shape Montesquieu's spirit of laws. That looks like a perfect fit. It is introducing Aristotle, another philosopher or political scientist, who wrote politics back in the 4th century of BC, well predating Montesquieu. And he was a champion of free ideas, and it says his work shaped Montesquieu's spirit of laws, which in turn shaped the Federalist Papers. So now we are really down to two choices, a 50-50 bet between R and T. And let's look at those. R was our quotation example. All constitutions have three elements. One element which deliberates about public affairs. Secondly, that concerned with the magistracies. And thirdly, that which has judicial power. T says, although Aristotle himself saw democracy as flawed and advocated a republic instead, his ideas underpin our current constitution and democracy. So T could fit as a follow-on to U, because that introduces Aristotle. And then although Aristotle was not entirely in favor of democracy, but his ideas underpin democracy, could follow with the transition, although, and the concept of what Aristotle thought. But R is probably the better next follow-on sentence, for one reason being that if you put R, the quotation at the very end, it doesn't really make sense. It's not a good conclusion. So I prefer R to follow the sentence U, because that really gives a description of how politics shaped Montesquieu's spirit of laws. And it's giving a direct quotation or example. All constitutions have three elements, which is essentially the executive, judicial, and legislative, which underlies the three branches of government in our Constitution. And then T would still make sense as a follow-on to R. Although Aristotle himself saw democracy as flawed and advocated a republic instead, his ideas underpin our current constitution and democracy. So I like the order we have this paragraph in. SQ, U, R, T. Let's move on to the next.